One other ingredient besides the inoculants, and the last one is, well, not quite the last one, but basically the last one is rock phosphate. In many cases with cold soils, spring soils, you don't have a lot of calcium availability, you don't have a lot of phosphorus availability. Both calcium and phosphorus are critical for root development. Calcium is considered to be sluggish, phosphorus is generally considered to be tied up. If you want to build big root systems, that before you build big tops, and you must have good availability of calcium and phosphorus. I don't want soluble calcium and phosphorus. I want, relatively bioavailable. I want it to be in a form that my plants can easily have digested for them by soil life. But I don't want soluble calcium. I don't want soluble phosphorus. If you give the plants those minerals in a soluble form, that's like the Gatorade. That's like the IV drip. That's not using the gut flora. So. Calphos, colloidal rock phosphate, is a form of rock phosphate which is very, very small particle size. And you can get a 50-pound bag of that, put a couple pounds of it in a 5-gallon bucket of water, stir it up, come back 12 hours later, and the water will still be milky because the particle size is so small that it stands in suspension. That's called colloidal. Really, really small particle size. So I want to get that really, really small particle size calcium phosphate into the hole, along with the enzymes, along with the seawater, along with the microbiology. And that will give the plant, that basic level of ingredients, ensures critical environmental conditions for, rapid root growth. I oftentimes will add a little bit of molasses, or generally actually humates, to that mix as well to buffer the salt. Because I always want to add a carbon source to buffer the salt.
So in one of the areas that I'm going to be planting, I have a huge surplus of both phosphate and calcium. So in those cases, you really wouldn't be adding that, even if it's just this drench.
Just because it's present does not mean it's necessarily available.
So that's,
we're talking about a really small quantity of actual calcium and phosphorus.
Okay. So because that would not be a time where you'd be like overdoing it, because it's just this drench at the time of planting.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, a drench concentrate that's maybe 2 gallons to the acre of all this stuff mixed together. So it's not really that much calcium or phosphorus, but it's a nice. And again, I'm giving you a recipe for how you can make this yourself.
Right.
These things are all available off the shelf in bottles if you, are not the kind of person who's a DIYer, which is probably many of us.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so I can put that into the hole first, that mix into the hole first, and then I do my transplanting. Anybody heard of this concept where you take your transplants and your tray of transplants and you dunk them in a tray, like a trough full of kelp or liquid fish? You dunk them before you transplant. Heard about this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So just walk through this one with me. What we want our roots to do when you put them into the ground is reach out. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing with a tray of seedlings that have the roots all turned in on themselves, that haven't been growing, is to dose them with a nice nutrient mix. And then stick them into soil that does not necessarily have much going on in it. What's the incentive? What's the plant going to want to do when you put it into that soil?
No.
It's going to turn inward because that's where all the goodies are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I like to do is I like to water the hole with the goodies,
Okay.
and then put the seedling into it. And then I like to dig up my seedling tomorrow. And out of the bed, just gently around the root ball, let me dig it up. I want to see a web like a wool hat, staticky wool hat, of new root hairs reaching out from the root ball into the soil. I would like to see that 24 hours after I transplant. And if not 24 hours, definitely within 48 hours. Check again if you don't see it. If you don't see that happening, then you can feel confident that that plant is not feeling excited about reaching out into the soil, and it probably won't be growing. And if it's a broccoli in the spring, in a week and a half you're going to have flea beetles, right? I mean, you can see when they don't reach out and establish well to begin with, they're probably going to be susceptible down the road. So my experience is I really do pay a lot of attention to where I'm putting things in, and trying to do it as well and as thoughtfully and gently and compassionately as possible. Then I put my drip tape down, and then I mulch, and then I don't have to do anything until I pick. Really, maintain hydration with the irrigation system, foliar spray if I feel like it, come out every now and then and check in with them and say, hey, how's it going? But when you put your plants in, you put them in well, they should actually flourish, they should outcompete the weeds. If you're mulching, you know, minimal disturbance of the soil. If you've got the good basic environmental conditions, it's really a sit back and let nature do most of the work for you situation from there on out. That's my basic experience.